Now, what we were studying the other day, we were talking about the processes, life processes. We have started with nutrition, right? We have started with nutrition. Okay, so we have already studied some basic concepts about nutrition. That is, what did we take up? We have taken up the concept of nutrition. I start from here. What did we study under the concept of nutrition? What did we study under the concept of nutrition? कौन बोलेगा?
Nutrients, foodstuffs,
And
enzymes, organic nutrition, inorganic.
हाँ, वो तीन terms हमने सीखा. और क्या सीखा? Autotrophic and heterotrophic nutrition, two main types. Autotrophic के दो type, photoautotrophic and chemoautotrophic. They have studied. Any doubts there? Anything to ask? Did we finish with heterotrophic mode of nutrition?
We just started.
We started with done. Is that done? You didn't give the definition. Heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Under the concept of heterotrophic mode, we are supposed to study three modes. One is Holozoic. We are supposed to study Sacrophytic. And we are supposed to study Parasitic. Let us compare and try to understand the three different modes, their differences along with examples. Examples, जैसे मैं पढ़ाती रहूंगी, try to remember what examples I am telling you. I may not ask you. You are a smart 10th standard children. You should be able to remember. अरे देखो जैसे smart की confidence नहीं है. Smart हो ना? अरे किसी ने smart बोला तो क्या? You all are really smart. हाँ, शर्माओ नहीं, शर्माने का नहीं. But improve your retention. Improve, and whenever you are sitting for a lecture, hearing and retention and writing, you improve this. So I'm not going to ask you everything to write and I will dictate. बहुत ज़्यादा जो important है वो I may dictate. Otherwise I will ask you from my lecture, you have to write. Improve your writing ability to frame answers. That's sad. Quite a number of times 12th standard students को भी answer frame करना नहीं आता. You all are smart enough. You should be able to do it right now. Holozoic nutrition. What did I tell you? Group of organisms.
Solid or breaking pieces.
Pieces or parts of food or whole food. And they are capable of digesting the food inside their body. That's the main thing to understand. So that means if I'm talking about any type of an organism which is holozoic, that can be an amoeba, that can be a parrot, that can be a fish, that can be human. All these organisms are holozoic. So what are we understanding? Should they have a well-defined digestive system or not? Yes, they should have. No, I'm repeatedly telling you. If it is holozoic mode of nutrition, the organism is capable of digesting their food inside the body. That means these type of organisms have well-defined digestive system. And what is their mode? Again, I repeat, the mode is that they are taking parts, pieces of food or whole food. But comparatively, when I talk about saprophytic mode, in case of saprophytic mode, let me tell you the characteristics. Saprophytic. What does these type of organisms do?
they do not have a well-defined system, so they release enzymes or digesting substances into the soil, and then they become the digestive nutrients
from the decomposing surface.
So organic.
So if I am talking about a concept of saprophytic, first and foremost to understand, we are talking about a group of organisms which does not have the well-defined digestive system again. Number two, these type of organisms are quite simple. Saprophytic, saprotrophic. These type of organisms are quite simple, and these type of organisms can take in absorbable nutrients by the surface of their body. For example, I talk about an yeast, a single cell organism, and this yeast can take in the soluble molecules of nutrients from the surface of their body. Absorption. Do they have a mouth? No, nothing. Do they have any other structures by which they can take in food? Can they digest inside? No, they cannot. So these organisms that I'm mentioning as a single celled organism belonging to the category of fungi, such type of organisms always will have simple enzymes to dissolve the molecules that they take in. Only that much. No systems to digest organic food, complex food, nothing. No structures to take in the food also. They don't have any structure to take in the food also. So that is what it is. And next is, basically all fungus belong to this category. The mushroom, the mucor, the mold, the yeast, all belong to this category. Where do we generally find this type of organisms? Wherever there is decomposition. And decomposition of organic food basically. And if I tell you, you must have also observed that where do we basically see the fungus growing? Always. Where there is process of decomposition of food. That is quite common, we all have seen, no? Whenever there is decomposition of food, say suppose the stale bread, the fungus growing on the stale bread, I think all of you have come across, no, sometime or the other. The bread which maybe your mother has bought and then it was left, maybe outside in the kitchen slab, it was left for 2-3 days. Especially in the monsoon time, you will come across that they always show the growth of some thread-like structures on the surface of the body, on the surface of the bread. What are these? Fungus. The mold, a type of a fungi. And the growth of the fungus on the leather, shoes and bags during the monsoon, we get to see very common that stuff. So, are we saying that the bag and the belts and the shoes, are they getting decomposed? I'm saying that the process of decomposition generally allows the growth of the fungi. So, is my bag and my shoe getting decomposed? No, it's not getting decomposed. But since it is also a organic matter, so the bacterial growth has happened. And that's the reason the fungal growth. But addition to that, very simple is, yes, the shoe and the leather and all these things are organic compounds, are the reason the fungal growth. And on top of that, if I talk about any decomposition, there's a foul smell. The foul smell is only because of the growth of the bacteria, and addition to that, the fungal enzymes. So very simple, vegetables, food, any type of a organic product. If I talk about the dead animal, the dead plant part, that also when it undergoes the process of decomposition, what do we get to see? Fungal growth is there even at that site even. So basic definition remains what? Saprophytic mode of nutrition. What it is? A mode of nutrition in which organisms grow in areas where there is decomposition of organic matter. And these type of organisms, the fungi, saprophytes, these type of organisms always take in absorbable nutrients, meaning in the decomposing site always there is simple molecules already broken down. Who has done the job of breaking down the complex organic molecule to simple? Did the fungus do that job? Did the fungi do that job? The bacterial enzymes. The enzymes released by the bacteria, they have done the job. Now the question is, from where did the fungus grow there? How did the fungus grow there? Because the fungal spores are known to be there always in the air. They are very small, they are very light. And this fungal spores, which now find these areas. Now, can I say that the fungal spores are not here? Maybe they're here also. But the environment is not suitable for their growth. That's the reason we don't get to see the fungal growth here on a dry surface. On a dry surface, we don't see the fungal growth. On a inorganic surface, we basically don't see fungal growth because the environment is not suitable. Definition: saprophytic organisms are the mode of nutrition in which, or wait, I'll tell you to write. Mode of nutrition in which organisms feed on soluble nutrients of areas where decomposition of organic matter takes place. What are two examples of organic matter that you can write? We already discussed that. What are two? Bread. Okay. Stale food. That can be a fruit, or see when we talk about the lemon or the orange or the banana or the bread. Yes. Decomposition. Fungal growth is there. Yes. Stale food.
Dead plants.
Or
Dead plants.
Dead plants. Dead animals. A dead pigeon on the road. Yes, after some time the process of decomposition and fungal growth is going to happen there also. So this is all the different type of examples that you'll have to fit in here. The process of decomposition and association of fungus. Parasitic. What is parasitic? Now I'm talking about an association between organisms. Both are living. The movement, the type of nutrition just now I talked about was one type of organism is living and the other type of organism is dead. The bacteria is living, but the fungal organisms are taking nutrition from an animal part, from a plant part which is already dead, and the process of decomposition is happening. But if I talk about the association between a roundworm and a cattle, a tapeworm and a sheep, so what's happening? Or take for example the leech and the human. In all these cases, what is happening? It's an association between two organisms. Both are living. One organism known as host, which is providing the nourishment, and the other organism known as the parasite, which is taking the nourishment. But by what way? By what way? By the way of blood, body fluid, basically. By the way of body fluid. And we all know that if, say suppose, the leeches take our blood, the blood is loaded with nutrients, no? The blood is loaded with nutrients. Our nutrients of digestion go and get stored in the blood first. So the leech is taking a blood meal. What is it taking from the blood? Only the nutrients, the molecules. So does this organism like the leeches, does this organism like the tapeworm, does this organism like the roundworm, are they supposed to have a well-defined digestive system? What do you think? No. Because they are not in need. They are not in need. Today we don't have wings. We are not in need, no? So our bones are so filled with matrix, we'll not be able to fly ever. So we are not in need. So that's why we don't have these organs. So when we are talking about why does these group of organisms does not have a well-defined digestive system, because their mode of nutrition is as such, they are not in need. But can we take in soluble nutrients by the surface of our body? No. We have to take it inside and get dissolved by the way of the enzymes and complicated processes. Let us complete this. Did I ask you to write down the definition and examples here? Did you write? No. Chalo, we'll finish this part. Holozoic mode of nutrition. Holozoic. I'll ask you to write down the basic definition along with the examples, and after that I'll give you a question to write where you will be trying to sort out the differences. Okay? First, number 1. Holozoic mode of nutrition. A mode of nutrition in which? A mode, M-O-D-E. A mode of nutrition in which organisms feed on. Organisms feed on parts, P-A-R-T-S. Organisms feed on parts or organisms feed on parts or pieces of food and digest them inside their body. Digest them inside their body. Write two examples. Write.
Humans.
हाँ लिखो. Two examples. Amoeba is also holozoic. Remember, it's a single cell, but it's paramecium also. They have got simple mode of nutrition, but they have got method of digesting it inside their cell. Done. All of you could write two examples. Holozoic. Right next. Sacrophytic. Sacrophytic. Mode of nutrition in which? Mode of nutrition in which organisms feed on soluble nutrients. Organisms feed on soluble nutrients from decomposing organic matter. Soluble nutrients from decomposing organic matter. Soluble nutrients from decomposing organic matter. Full stop. They absorb nutrients by they absorb nutrients. They absorb nutrients by or through, through the general surface of their body. They absorb nutrients through the general surface of their body. Absorb nutrients through the general surface of their body. Next, write two examples. अच्छा एक और sentence लिख के रखो. You are asked this in the paper. These organisms are known as Sacrophytes. These organisms are known as Sacrophytes. What is a saprophyte? क्या लिखोगे? Organisms which feed on soluble nutrients of decomposing matter, organic matter. So थोड़ा सा difference तब होता है in the way you write. Write two examples फटाफट. Two examples of saprophytes. लिखा? क्या लिखा तुमने? Example लिखना है. Example लिखो पहले. दो example लिखना है. Did you write? लिखो. Two examples of saprophytes. Two examples of saprophytes. Example क्या है? फंगस का बड़ा कैटेगरी है. एग्जाम्पल लिखो. मोल्ड, म्यूका, yeast, mushroom. Mold, म्यूका, yeast, mushroom. All of them belong to the category of fungi. You will be asked write two examples of saprophytes. So, types लिखना है, example लिखना है. Fungi is a category of organisms. No? Third, parasitic. Mode of nutrition in which? Parasitic. Mode of nutrition in which? Mode of nutrition in which an organism derives का spelling क्या है? Organism derives nutrients. Organism derives nutrients from the body of a living host organism derives nutrients from the body of a living host. Full stop. Such organisms are called parasites. Such organisms are called parasites. Parasites. They may fall in two categories. They may fall in two categories. Ectoparasite. They may fall in two categories. Ectoparasite. Underline. Ectoparasite. Hyphen and write. Parasites which remain attached. Parasites which remain attached to the outer body surface of the host. Outer body surface of the host or external body surface of the host. Ectoparasite. Example: leech, fleas, ticks, lice, all this come under this category. Ticks. 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 Fleas. Lice भी लिख सकते हो, head lice होता है ना, the same category. What are you understanding? वैसे तो parasite will always take soluble nutrient from the body of a living host, ज़्यादातर body fluid से. There are a category of parasite like the leech and the lice and the fleas and the ticks. Fleas and ticks basically are there on the body surface of poultry. Birds में भी होता है. And some type of ticks are also there. You'll come across in those dogs में dogs के body hair में भी होता है.
Domestic pets.
Domestic pets में भी होता है. काफी बार people who have got domestic pets, you'll also come across that gets transferred into their mattresses and cushions, and that's the reason, if at all, sometimes we happen to sit on some cushions ऐसे, and then we get those bites, and then there is swelling and itching. So these are those type of insects that we're talking about, the ticks and the fleas. Fleas are more dangerous. Then what is the other category of parasite? तो ये तो हो गया एक category जहाँ पे parasitism हो रहा है, but then the parasite is on the outer surface of the host body. What is the other category? Now that if I talk about the tapeworm and the roundworm, where endoparasite, where the eggs of the parasite may be there in the green leaves. The eggs of the parasites may be there in the water, contaminated water. And now that we happen to consume contaminated food, uncovered food, unwashed, uncooked, or improperly washed and cooked vegetable, bolo.
Mosquitoes, parasites, female mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes are generally not considered to be a full category of parasites because they can also take in soluble nutrients from other surfaces. But yes, if we have to consider parasitism, ectoparasite. They are ectoparasite. They can take in human blood meal. That's what I'm explaining. When I talk about the tapeworm and the roundworm, which are quite pronounced creatures, as it is by the way of our mouth, they cannot enter. Then how do they enter? By contaminated food and water or improper sanitary conditions. काफी सारे parasitic diseases are there where a patient may release contaminated stools. So unhygienic conditions, sanitary conditions, that's why हमें avoid हमेशा करना चाहिए. Because by that way also we may get contaminated by a parasite, affected by a parasite. And what's the other way? And the most common way? Most common way is by the way of food and water. Contaminated food and water. Uncovered food and water अगर हम लेते हैं काफी बार उसमें contamination हो सकती है. And then on top of that, what else to remember whenever we are talking about? Maybe in our homes also, quite a number of times, especially in the monsoon, the green leaves and all, we take extra care to boil them and wash them. Why? Because if at all in the green leaves, the eggs are there of the worms, we don't see them, we can't see them. So if at all the egg stage is entered, then the eggs will start growing by taking the nutrients and they start developing in the stomach and the intestine. And once they grow, they get attached on the intestinal wall and not easy for us to get removed. It's not so easy when the worm infection happens in any individual's body. But comparatively, such type of parasitic infection in human is lesser as compared to cattle, as compared to grazing animals. Grazing animals में इस तरह के infection बहुत ज़्यादा होता है. Endoparasitic infection. So what do we write? The other category, we have to write the other category as endoparasite. Let's write it down. Endoparasite, the other category. Endoparasite. Second, the first category, they may be classified as, or they may be grouped as ectoparasites. You written the number one. The first one, the second one you write now. Second one you write now. Endoparasites. These parasites get their entry into the host body. Get their entry into the host body by food and water. Food and water. Example क्या लिखना है? Tapeworm, roundworm, most common. Tapeworm, roundworm. Tapeworm, roundworm. Okay. So now homework remains that you will complete at home, and we are going to see this next class. One question. Try two differences between. Likho and then leave almost 5 lines to complete your answer. Write two differences between saprophytic and parasitic. Write two differences between saprophytic and parasitic mode of nutrition. Two differences between saprophytic and parasitic mode of nutrition. Done. So this you will try at home. Next day I am going to positively check what you all have written. Okay, and from as and when I teach, off and on I will ask you some questions to write here. 1 or 2 questions you'll have to try at home. Nobody should give me any excuse when you come the next day, the reason why you did not write, unless and until you have any health issues. ये एक question लिखने के लिए hardly 5 minutes you will need. That I think all of you can manage. Now, if I go back to the concept of autotrophic, तो ये हो गया heterotrophic mode of nutrition according to your syllabus. We are not going anymore. There are many other categories of heterotrophic nutrition to talk about. We can talk about symbiotism, hai, commensalism, hai. So there are many other modes when we are talking about. We are not going to talk about that. But these are the 3 major modes that we had studied. But we studied holozoic, we studied saprophytic, we studied parasitic, we studied. Okay. So इनके differences हमेशा याद रहना चाहिए. Now, if I go back to the concept of autotrophic mode of nutrition again, what is the first thing that comes to our mind? Autotrophic nutrition हम जैसे ही बोलते हैं, what is the first thing that comes to our mind? Example? Plants. So autotrophic nutrition हम जैसे ही सोचते हैं, first the concept of plants is what we try to recollect. So yes, autotrophic nutrition and plants are very good examples of autotrophic nutrition. We always know. What is the special property that the plants have and we don't? Plants have a special category of pigment. Chlorophyll. We don't have that. And that's the reason we are not able to utilize so many different types of inorganic substances around us to prepare our own food. That's the reason we have to depend on other organisms. We have to depend on other autotrophs, other heterotrophs. So remembering that concept of autotrophic nutrition in plants, we are going to study now a detailed concept about autotrophic nutrition in plants. We are going to study about the concept of autotrophic nutrition in plants. And what is that process by which the plants can make their own food? A process known as photosynthesis. Let's try to define that word first. Photosynthesis under the concept of autotrophic nutrition in plants and photosynthesis. What are you supposed to understand? It's a detailed concept when we talk about photosynthesis, but I'll try to stick to the syllabus. Photosynthesis, a type of a biochemical process. Photosynthesis, a type of a biochemical process. And in this biochemical process, the green plants can prepare food, manufacture food. So the basic definition remains like this. The biochemical process in which green plants, we majorly talk about green plants because they are the type of organisms majorly found all over the world. But it's not that only green plants are photosynthetic. There are other categories, blue-green algae. No? So these are also type of organisms which are photosynthetic, but since they are in abundance, you have to talk about green plants are more abundantly photosynthetic. No? So that's why. Biochemical process in which green plants can manufacture or prepare, organic food using carbon dioxide, water, chlorophyll, and sunlight. So that is the basic definition. Photosynthesis, define photosynthesis. Define photosynthesis. So this particular word should be known how to define in complete definition लिखना है, where you are to write that what are some of the substances used and what is getting formed. What is the overall chemical equation? Let's try writing. Molecules of carbon dioxide, 12 molecules of water, in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. What do we get? Organic food, glucose, 6 molecules of oxygen, 6 molecules of water. Write down the overall chemical equation of photosynthesis. This is the one that you have to write. Sometimes you will come across written here 6 molecules of water. This need not be written, okay? As I told you, sometimes you will come across written 6 molecules of water, which is generally not to be written. Why? I tell you why. Why again? Why? Because the process of photosynthesis always takes place in a surplus of water. Adequate amount of water not there, the cells cannot undergo the process of photosynthesis. And on top of that, when I write here 6, I cannot write here release of water as a byproduct. But when I don't write this, again my equation is wrong. Because the process of photosynthesis always releases water as a byproduct. So I don't write this and I write here 6, my equation is not correct. Most of the teachers will mark it wrong. Because that's correct. The concept remains wrong that way. So what is the correct concept that you have to write? This is what you have to write. 12 molecules of water and 6 molecules of water released as byproducts. Okay. Now, straight away, to talk about the process of photosynthesis, we are next to understand that where does this process happen, the mode, the method, etc. So, first of all, when we are talking about the process of photosynthesis, I already told you that the overall chemical equation, what care to remember, what care you should take when you are writing. Next, site. Where does this process happen?
Yes.
green leaves. और कुछ?
Plastics.
One stem, lower epidermis.
Green stem, correct. Green stem. और कुछ?
The plastics.
Plastics तो हो गया organ. Organ जहाँ पे होता है. I'm talking about the site of the plant जहाँ पे ये process होता है. Remember this? This is what you are asked to also mention two sites where the process takes place. तो क्या लिखोगे? Green leaves तो है ही. Green leaves, young green stem, young green stem, brown stem में obviously no photosynthesis, no? Young green stem, और क्या लिख सकते हैं? Stomata, guard cells में भी होता है process of photosynthesis, stomata. So we'll learn the structure of stomata very soon. So site जब पूछा जाए question paper में, mention to site. Mention to regions of the plant जहाँ पे photosynthesis हो रहा है. You are always supposed to mention the regions where the process happens. And which are the regions where the process is happening? Number one is green leaves, obviously. Green, young green stem में भी हो सकता है, होता है. And guard cells of the stomata, वहाँ पे भी होता है. Now I have written down stomata. देखो, I will show you the structure of the stomata. This is how it looks like. दिखाई दे रहा है? Stomata के जो guard cells है, उसके अंदर भी chloroplast है. Can you see this? So wherever chloroplast present, the process of photosynthesis is invariable. होना ही है. ठीक है? तो ये बात तो clear है. कहाँ पे होता है? Where does the process happen? Now let us talk about raw materials. ये जो process है, इसके raw materials क्या है? What does the plant require for this process? What does the plant require for this process? Let's try to CO2 है. देखो equation CO2 है और क्या? Water है और क्या? Sunlight, chlorophyll. ये चार. So the first is I talk about carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide. You'll get various questions. From where does the plant get the carbon dioxide? क्या लिखोगे? From atmosphere. Carbon dioxide, from where does the plant get it from? From where? Answer is atmosphere. From where does the plant get? जो क्वेश्चन पूछा जाए उसका ही आंसर लिखना है. From where does the plant get carbon dioxide? From where does it get? From where does it derive? Atmosphere. Next is how. What is the process by which the plant will get the carbon dioxide? Through stomata, by the way of diffusion. By the way of diffusion, and special structures involved are the stomata. So these are the key terms you have to remember. Plants take in carbon dioxide from atmosphere by the way of diffusion through special structures known as stomata. The mechanism of stomata we'll learn later. What is the second? Second is water. Now that's simple, you know already. Water कहाँ से मिलेगा? From the soil. The water plant will take from the soil. By what special structures? Roots. And कौन सा process should be involved? Osmosis. So the roots are constantly absorbing water from the soil by the way of osmosis. है ना? Do you know the definitions? Osmosis and diffusion. Yes. कौन बोलेगा? Osmosis का definition. रिकलेक्ट करो ताकि मैं जो समझाऊं इजीली कोरिलेट भी कर सकूं. हाँ बोलो.
Transfer of material. Diffusion means transfer of materials from higher concentration.
Materials बोलोगे?
In diffusion it means materials, and in osmosis it means transfer from higher to lower concentration.
Diffusion or osmosis. पहले diffusion का definition बोलो. All of you should participate in the class. हाँ? सोचो, याद करो, कोरिलेट करो. डिफ्यूजन का क्या था? बेसिक डेफिनेशन क्या सिखाया डिफ्यूजन का?
The process by which substances travel from a region of high concentration level to a region of low concentration.
Okay. molecules traveling from a region of high concentration to low concentration. तो वो gases भी हो सकता है, liquids भी हो सकता है, solids भी हो सकता है. Then how is osmosis different?
We are controlling the level of water from higher concentration to a low concentration to a
permeable zone. तो जब हम osmosis की बात कर रहे हैं, we are only talking about transfer of water. And when we are talking about diffusion, we are talking about any type of a molecule possible. That can be solute, that can be liquids, that can be gases. तो ये याद रखना है. Yes, water molecule from roots by methods of osmosis. Now, the most important that we are talking about is chlorophyll. Chlorophyll. Chlorophyll कहाँ पे बनता है? Now that is very very important. Chloroplasts, plastids. You have studied no 9th standard में plastids. So now we are going to go back to the concept. When we are talking about a plant leaf, whenever we talk about the section of a leaf, let me just show you that. I talk about the section of a leaf here. Similar type of a diagram is there in your book also. देखो यहाँ पे. I talk about the section of a leaf. मतलब I'm talking about the upper layer and then the subsequent layers. This is the uppermost layer. दिखा दे रहा है epidermis. The uppermost layer and then comes the subsequent layer. Now in this layers, apart from the uppermost layer, in the subsequent layers, which are basically known as palisade. तो ये जो second, third, fourth layers of cells होता है, they have got adequate number of chloroplasts. This is a section of a leaf I am showing you. तो ये जो epidermis, after the epidermis जो layers of cells होते हैं, they have got adequate number of chloroplasts. And chloroplast is an organelle which is very much associated with the synthesis of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll, where is it produced? In the chloroplast. What is chloroplast? It's a cell organelle. Chloroplast is a cell organelle. Now, when I talk about a chloroplast, how does it look like? A chloroplast, if I see the structure, if you remember in the 9th standard, you have studied a little bit about the plastids. No, एक double membrane structure है. And then it has got some stacks, coin-like structures. So it has got plates or coins like this, and then they are all connected. They are all connected. So individually, when I talk about these structures, roughly, I just show you this. Individually, when I show these structures, try to remember. What are they called? Very good. These type of structures, individual plate-like structures or individual disc-like structures, they are called thylakoid. What are they? Thylakoid. And a group of thylakoids, what will be they termed as? They will be termed as granum. A stack of thylakoids. A stack of thylakoids. Generally 10 to 15 of them together. A stack of thylakoids in the chloroplast, when we talk about the section of the chloroplast, a stack of them called the granum. And quite a number of them together, 2, 3 of them together, I would say grana. And what about the cytoplasm here? Now it's a cell organelle, no? Just like any other cell organelle. If you remember mitochondria, if you remember the Golgi, if you remember any other cell organelle, they always have small amount of cytoplasmic matrix inside, no? This also has the same. And this matrix will be termed as stroma. These two terms you have to remember for the later part of the chapter. Grana and stroma. What is grana? The stack of thylakoids. What is stroma? The matrix, the ground matrix. जहाँ पे बाकी सारे structures present होते हैं. So grana and stroma. Now, why are we talking about the grana and the stroma? Because first of all, to understand that when I talk about the grana is nothing but a stack of plate-like structures. And ये जो individual plate-like structures have thylakoid, if I magnify each one of them, I get to see that this stack of structures, these plate-like structures, on the inner side, the molecules of chlorophyll are produced and stored. So this inner side has got the processes and the mechanism for the formation and the storing of the chlorophyll. So where is chlorophyll formed and stored? In the inner membrane of the thylakoid. And the thylakoid stacks, what do we term them as? Grana. Matrix strong. So अभी फिलहाल इतना ही याद रखो. So we are talking about the chloroplast. Now I'm saying that एक leaf में, एक single leaf में, I talk about a plant. तो एक single leaf में कितने सारे chloroplast हो सकता है? Hundreds and even more. मतलब I'm talking about a small area of a leaf जहाँ पे 40 to 50 chloroplast आराम से होता है. Talk about a leaf like the peepal and the banyan, big leaves, broad leaves they are, no? So for any particular leaf, if I select a small area, एक square millimeter area, काफी छोटा है ना? In that small area only, we get to see almost about 40-45 chloroplasts present. So you can imagine, एक plant में there are more than hundreds of leaves and millions of chloroplasts. So at any time, a plant is always producing more amount of organic food than what it actually needs. At any time, a plant, because it has so many chloroplasts and it is accessible to sunlight also, but there are limitations. But still anyhow, the plant is capable of producing so much of food. Not exactly, it does not actually produce food what it needs, just like us. Do we eat exactly what we need? No, we don't. No? Do we sit with a measuring cup and a measuring balance to balance and take? No, we eat randomly. So actually we are eating more than what we need as for what to survive. No, we eat more. Same like that, a plant is actually producing food much more than what it needs. So this is about basically the chlorophyll. Where is it formed? Now, what is the definition of the word chlorophyll? This is a very common question you get in your paper. What is chlorophyll? Calico. A green colored photosynthetic pigment prepared in the thylakoid of the grana. What is chlorophyll? What is chlorophyll? A green colored photosynthetic pigment. Green colored photosynthetic pigment. Green colored photosynthetic pigment produced and stored in the thylakoid of the chloroplast. Thylakoid of the chloroplast. I'll repeat. Green colored photosynthetic pigment. Green colored photosynthetic pigment produced and stored in the thylakoid of chloroplast. So this is about the raw materials that a plant should have, a leaf should get to undergo the process of photosynthesis. Overall chemical reaction says that for such and such molecules of carbon dioxide and water, 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 10 molecules of water, and if there is ambient sunlight and chlorophyll, then 1 molecule of glucose, that is organic food, should be formed. 1 molecule of organic food should be formed with surplus of oxygen. So now what is the organic molecule formed? What is the organic molecule? You are also asked. Name the organic food formed during photosynthesis. Answer is glucose. Answer is glucose. What are the byproducts? Now, when I talk about oxygen and water, these are apart from the main product, and these are what are called byproducts. These are what are called byproducts. What is the meaning of the word byproduct? Additional product. Apart from the main. So let us talk about these products now. The first one, glucose. What is its fate? Glucose, what is its fate? Just now I told you that any particular plant produces food much more than what it needs. Any particular plant produces food much more than what it needs. Now, if we believe that, then we are going to understand that the fate of glucose would be something this way, where when I talk about the glucose, what would be the fate of glucose? The fate of glucose would be something this way. Very, very important for you to remember. What is the fate of glucose that takes place or forms during the process of photosynthesis? The first one is the glucose that is formed immediately gets converted to sucrose and dissolved in the cell sac. Do you remember what is cell sac? कुछ भी तुमको याद नहीं है तो तुम 9 से 10 आए कैसे? Present in the vacuole. Very good. Present in the vacuole. The water present in the vacuole. तो उसको हम water क्यों नहीं बोलते हैं?
Because it does not contain H2, it also contains other organic nutrients.
Minerals. Organic नहीं, inorganic nutrients. Sodium है, chlorides है, potassium है, manganese है, etc. etc. It's not just clear water. The vacuole in a plant cell does not only contain water, but it has a huge lot of mineral nutrients. इसीलिए उसको हम water नहीं बोल सकते. It's sap. And also dissolved food. Now, what type of dissolved food? Now, try to remember. Explain the fate of glucose formed during photosynthesis. क्या लिखना है? Glucose that is formed in the process of photosynthesis. Let me now think that it was formed in the leaf. So, glucose जो leaf में बन रहा है, what will be the fate of that? A fraction of it, not all of it. A fraction of it will get converted into sucrose. What is sucrose? Bit complex form. Bit complex form. अगर ग्लूकोज सबसे सिंपलेस्ट फॉर्म ऑफ कार्बोहाइड्रेट है तो सुक्रोज थोड़ा सा कॉम्प्लेक्स फॉर्म है. सुक्रोज इज अ कॉम्प्लेक्स फॉर्म ऑफ कार्बोहाइड्रेट, ऑर्गेनिक फूड. उससे भी कॉम्प्लेक्स है. यू हैव हर्ड अबाउट दैट वर्ड पॉलीसैकेराइड. यू हैव हर्ड नो पॉलीसैकेराइड. सो सुक्रोज से भी कॉम्प्लेक्स होता है पॉलीसैकेराइड. ठीक है. सो आई एम सेइंग first है ये glucose. The glucose first of all gets converted into sucrose and then dissolved in the cell fat. And now what will happen? It will be transported. It will be transported by what type of tissues help in the process of plant transportation? Xylem phloem. मतलब मैं ही टिक करूँ कौन सा राइट है? आंसर क्या है? Xylem की phloem. 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 What type of tissues help in the process of transportation of food, soluble food? Phloem. So you are to remember how does glucose get transported? In what form it gets transported? By what tissues it gets transported? ये जो process है, इस process को क्या बोलेंगे? Translocation. This process is called translocation. What is translocation? Transportation of organic food formed by photosynthesis in a soluble form by phloem. So actually कहाँ पे जा रहा है? Where is the soluble food going? From the leaf it has to travel to the roots and the stem and the fruit and the flower and the seed. Any part of the plant it should go, no? And it should travel in all directions, upwards and sideways and downwards. Any direction it can go. This method is translocation. So what I said, after the process of photosynthesis, a fraction of glucose, a particular amount of glucose gets transferred by this method. So what is the fate of the other fraction? Maybe I talk about the 50% gets transported this way. Generally 60-70% gets transported, and in छोटा सा fraction, what happens to that? The excess of glucose, the surplus glucose, what happens to the excess of glucose? The surplus glucose gets converted into the polysaccharide, उसको बोलेंगे starch. ये starch, now it starts getting deposited into the plant parts. What can be the plant parts? It can be the flower, it can be the seed, it can be the stem. And this process, what is this process called? This process is called polymerization. This process is called polymerization. So what is the fate of glucose? The fate of glucose is a major fraction distributed by the phloem to different plant parts, and a smaller fraction stored in the plant parts to be used later. Where are they stored? It can be in the flower, fruit, seed, stem. In what form? Starch. What is this process called? Polymerization. Next is we talk about oxygen. ये जो byproduct है, सबसे important byproduct कौन सा है? सबसे important byproduct is oxygen. सबसे important byproduct कौन सा? Oxygen. What is its fate? How is it formed? तो सबसे पहले तो ये याद रखो, how is oxygen formed? Yes, question. How is it formed? You should always know the answer of this question. How is oxygen formed during the process of photosynthesis? From where?
Splitting of the water molecule.
By the splitting of water molecule. And that's a pronounced reaction. Photolysis जिसे हम कहते हैं. So now, when I talk about how is this formed, this is formed by the breakdown of the water molecule. This is formed by the breakdown of the water molecule. या तो straight away I write down oxygen. These are steps of reaction. So maybe not needed for you. So this much you should remember. How is oxygen formed during the process of photosynthesis? By the splitting of water, not from carbon dioxide at all. Now, what is the fate of this oxygen? The fate of this oxygen is the major amount will be released into the atmosphere. The major amount will be released into the atmosphere by the way of stomata. Process will remain diffusion. And a छोटा सा amount will be used up by the plant for photorespiration. Now, what is photorespiration? Photorespiration means the plants are going to use a small fraction of oxygen for their own respiration. अभी question ये है कि plants कैसे respire करेंगे? How does the plants respire? Night. They are also going to take in oxygen. This oxygen, the plants are going to take in by the way of stomata. But Q, because this oxygen is also going to be used up for the breakdown of starch and later glucose, ताकि plant cells को energy मिल पाए. When we talk about this process, photorespiration, just try to understand the relation that oxygen is always used up for the breakdown of glucose. That means, if I talk about ये जो photorespiration मैंने बोला है, what exactly is happening in the plant cells? Plant cells have this glucose which will require oxygen, and this will help in the breakdown of glucose to carbon dioxide and energy. So we are talking about the release of energy from this process. What is the fate of oxygen? Again, I repeat, try to understand. What is the fate of oxygen? A major fraction of oxygen is always released into the atmosphere ताकि हम survive कर सकें. We get oxygen from the plant. So a major amount of oxygen is released by the plants through the way of the stomata into the atmosphere, and that is majorly used for animal respiration. But the plant does not release all of it. The plant keeps little bit for itself, which the plant will again retake inside by the way of stomata, diffusion inside. तो ये oxygen plant क्यों use करेगा? किस लिए use करेगा? For the process of breakdown of glucose, ताकि plants को भी तो energy की जरूरत है. Can you tell me two processes जिसमें plants को energy need होती है? Plants को क्यों energy की जरूरत है? Plants तो नाचता भी नहीं है, गाता भी नहीं है, dance भी नहीं करेगा, move भी नहीं. Transportation of nutrients or very good. Transportation of nutrients के लिए plants को now that the xylem and phloem has to do their job. इसके लिए तो energy की जरूरत है. Yes, they require energy. And for what? और भी बहुत सारे processes for which plants need energy. Can you name another two? For osmosis, हाँ उसके लिए भी थोड़ा बहुत. But that is mostly diffusion. और एक और बोलो. The plants are constantly growing. Cell division. The plants are growing, leaves are growing, flowers are growing, seeds are growing, fruits are growing. तो ये जो growth process है, growth में cell division must है. And cell division के लिए energy बहुत बहुत ज़्यादा. So that's the reason now that you all are growing, your mother gives you additional nutrients, no? She eats lesser. We eat lesser. We give more to our children. क्यों? Because in your body the process of cell division is fast and growth is happening. So it's same for a plant. The plant needs needs enough amount of energy for the process of cell division. तो ये energy यहाँ से आएगा. Okay. What did we learn today? We talked about the basic concept of photosynthesis. What are its raw materials? What are its products? Raw materials कहाँ से आता है? And what happens to the products? I'll give you 2 minutes time. देखो, anything that you want to ask. Anything that is not clear. Anything that you want to clarify. कौन सा? नहीं. Anything that you want to clarify. Everything you hear and listen in the class should be very clear to you. Should be clearly understood. You should be able to relate one with the other. Grana is the plural of granum. Granum एक है. Grana. Write one question. फटाफट. As you write, कोई भी doubts you that arises, please ask and clarify. यहाँ पे नहीं लिखना है. Mention the 3 prominent events. Mention the 3 prominent events of photosynthesis. We haven't finished the concept of photosynthesis. Next class will continue, but you can finish the answer. We're already mentioned the 3 prominent events of photosynthesis. But take it down and I'll continue from here the next class. Mention the 3 prominent events of photosynthesis. I'll give you 2 minutes. Complete. It's okay. Right now. Huh? Not homework. You have to write it down. He's already packing his bag. 2 minutes. Group job. 2 minutes. Then we'll wind up, and I will start from here tomorrow, the next class again. Take hardly 2 minutes. Huh? Huh? Yeah.
With writing in bold words.
Bold words meaning what?
I'm writing by my word.
The point should be correct. The key term should be there. You are not a scientist to put your own terms. सारे key terms रहना चाहिए. We are just starting. I told you already. I'll give you any time mock test in the class. In the subject, you should get full marks. एक भी mark जाना नहीं चाहिए. That way, you should write your answers. This is optional for you. नहीं लिखना है तो you can leave it in the form of ATP and NADPH. ये नहीं लिखो तो भी चलेगा for you. Done. Reduction of carbon dioxide to form carbohydrate. Done? All of you done? Okay, we wind up here. Continue again the next.